Ryan Cole was still smiling when the federal investigator asked him one simple question. Did Linda Miller know what she was signing? Ryan leaned back. Linda wanted the promotion. I was only trying to help her. My wife lowered her head. Her hands shook so badly, the paper cup in front of her rattled. Then the investigator turned to me. Mr. Miller, do you have anything to add? I looked at Ryan, the man who had spent 3 weeks making my wife look guilty. Then I placed a sealed envelope on the table and said, "Only that. He just told the last lie I needed." Ryan's smile died before anyone opened it. 3 weeks earlier, I was standing barefoot in my kitchen at 11:47 on a Thursday night, watching my wife take off a coat I had never seen before. It was navy blue, fitted at the waist, with silver buttons catching the green light from the stove clock. Rain clung to the sleeves. Beneath it, Linda wore the pearl earrings I had bought her for our 25th anniversary. The house was quiet, except for the refrigerator humming and leaves scraping across the back porch. In the black kitchen window, I saw my reflection, 62 years old, gray beard, old robe, cold coffee in my hand. Linda froze. "You're still up," she said. Her voice was soft, but not with tenderness, with caution. "Couldn't sleep," I said. She slipped off one black heel, then the other. Linda worked in payroll operations. Most nights she came home in flats and complained about the copier. She did not come home near midnight smelling like unfamiliar cologne and hotel lobby air. Then she set her phone face down on the counter. That bothered me more than the coat. For 31 years, Linda left her phone by the coffee maker screen facing up. When patterns change, the heart notices first. "Long day?" I asked. She smiled too late. "Very long. We're behind on the Eastbrook account. Ryan stayed late to help me organize some files." "Ryan," she said his name carefully. "Ryan Cole." She nodded. "He's just being helpful, David. He knows the system better than I do. He says if I get through this audit cleanup, I might finally have a chance at team lead." I didn't know team lead required midnight meetings. Her eyes flashed. "It's not like that." I had not said what it was like. Then her phone buzzed. For 1 second, the screen lit up. Ryan Cole. "Don't tell him. He wouldn't understand." Linda grabbed the phone so quickly her knuckles hit the granite. The younger version of me might have shouted. He might have demanded the truth. But age teaches anger to sit down and watch. So I only asked, "You're sure he's just helping you work late?" Linda swallowed. "Yes," she said. "He's only helping me." Simple words, ordinary words, but they cut deeper than shouting, because I could hear what she did not say. She did not say, "You have nothing to worry about." She did not say, "Let me show you." She only said he was helping her. A husband knows when his wife is hiding something. The hard part is knowing whether she is hiding sin, shame, or fear. On Linda's face, I saw all three. She moved toward the stairs with her phone tight in her hand. "Can we talk tomorrow?" she asked. "I'm exhausted." "We can," I said. Halfway up, she stopped. "David," she whispered, "you trust me, don't you?" That question hurt more than Ryan's message. "I want to," I said. Her eyes filled, but she turned before the tears fell. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close. Then I poured my coffee into the sink and walked to the garage. Behind the Christmas bins sat a gray filing cabinet Linda had not asked about in years. I reached under the workbench for the key. The drawer stuck, metal scraped. Then it opened. Inside was a life I had folded away, a leather notebook, a small digital recorder, 3 old case files, and a laminated identification card. David Miller, Senior Fraud Investigator, Harrington, Mutual Risk Services. For 22 years, I followed lies through invoices, insurance claims, forged approvals, and shell companies. Fraud rarely begins with a gun. It begins with a favor. Use your login. Mine is frozen. Sign this. I'll explain later. Stay late. I'll make sure they notice you. Don't tell him. He wouldn't understand. I opened the notebook and wrote the date, Thursday, November 6th. Beneath it, I wrote one name, Ryan Cole. I still did not know if my wife had betrayed me, but the investigator in me noticed something the husband in me almost missed. Linda had looked guilty, but she had also looked terrified. At 12:26 a.m., I opened my laptop and searched Ryan Cole. Not social media first. Social media is where men build costumes. I started where careless men leave footprints, county records, old company announcements, vendor registrations, civil complaints. By 2:03, I knew enough to stop breathing normally. Ryan had worked at 3 companies in 9 years. 2 reported internal accounting irregularities within months of his resignation. 1 dismissed complaint named him only once, not as a defendant, but as a project liaison. Project liaison, a soft title, the kind that lets a man touch everything and own nothing. When I finally went upstairs, Linda was facing the wall. Her phone was under her pillow. I wanted to wake her and ask if she loved him, but I did not. Because if Ryan Cole was only after my wife, anger would be enough. If he was after something else, anger would warn him. The next morning, Linda was gone before I came downstairs. She had left a note beside the coffee maker. Early meeting. Sorry about last night. Love you. Then my phone rang. The number on the screen was one I had not seen in almost 8 years. David Miller? A woman asked. Yes, this is Karen Whitlow. I used to work compliance at Harrington. You told me once to call if I ever saw a certain vendor pattern again. What pattern? I asked. A pause. Eastbrook, she said, and a man named Ryan Cole. I looked toward the stairs where my wife had asked if I trusted her. Then I looked at the fresh folder on the kitchen table. That night, I began investigating the man my wife trusted, but I did not yet know that the person being fooled was not me. I had not heard Karen Whitlow's voice in years, but some voices carry their old offices with them. I stood in my kitchen with Linda's note in one hand and the phone in the other. Karen? I said, what exactly are you looking at? I can't send you anything, she answered. Not yet. A friend of mine consults for Graybridge Systems. Eastbrook's vendor codes triggered a review. Graybridge, I repeated. That's where Linda works. Graybridge Payroll Services, I said. Operations Department. Karen went quiet. David, she said there are duplicate vendor profiles attached to Eastbrook, small payments, nothing big enough to panic anyone, but the routing pattern looks familiar. How familiar? Like Brighton Medical in 2016? I closed my eyes. Brighton Medical had been one of my last major cases. A trusted coordinator created fake vendors, redirected small payments, then blamed a lonely office manager. Who is tied to the Eastbrook cleanup? I asked. Karen exhaled slowly. A project manager named Ryan Cole. There it was again. The name on my notebook, the name on my wife's phone. Do you know him? She asked. I'm starting to. Then start quietly. She hung up before I could ask more. For a long while I stood there listening to the empty line. Morning sunlight lay across the kitchen table. Linda's note was still in my hand. Love you, it said, small and uncertain at the bottom. That was the first morning I let myself remember how Ryan Cole had entered our home without ever crossing the threshold. It had been 6 months earlier in May after Linda came home smiling for the first time in weeks. She had been at Graybridge for 11 years, long enough to train people who were promoted above her, long enough to become the woman everyone relied on and no one rewarded. That night she set her purse down and said, "There's a new project manager at work." I was at the sink, rinsing lettuce. Good new or bad new? Different new. She laughed a little. His name is Ryan Cole. He came from some consulting firm in Columbus. He actually listened to my idea about the Eastbrook files. Dangerous behavior, I said, listening at work. She smiled. I'm serious, David. He said, I understand the old system better than anyone. You do. You say that because you're my husband. I say that because I've watched you fix other people's mistakes for 30 years. She kissed my cheek. He said something like that too. I remember that kiss clearly now, because of what came after it. For a few weeks, Ryan was just a name that made Linda stand straighter. He complimented her reports. He brought her coffee once, black with 2 sugars, because he had noticed how she took it. That sounded small. At our age, being noticed can feel like being touched. Linda had spent years becoming invisible in that office. Managers praised her reliability and promoted people with louder voices. I could see how a man like Ryan would find the soft place in her pride and press his thumb into it. Linda, he told her one evening on speakerphone, his voice smooth and warm. You're smarter than most people here realize. I was in the living room pretending to read. Linda glanced toward me and stepped into the hallway. Another time I heard her say, David wouldn't understand the pressure. Ryan's voice came faintly through the phone. Most husbands don't, Linda. It just means this is your world, not his. That was Ryan's gift. He never insulted me directly. He made me sound lovingly obsolete. A good manipulator does not knock down the door of a marriage. He opens a window and lets in enough cold air that both people start wondering who left it open. By August, Linda checked her reflection before leaving for work. By September, her phone traveled with her from room to room. Nothing was enough to accuse her. Everything was enough to ache. That Friday after Karen's call, I phoned Linda at noon. She answered on the 3rd ring. Hey, she said too brightly. Busy? A little. Ryan and I are trying to get ahead of Eastbrook before the audit team comes in. Just you and Ryan? A pause. Paper shuffled. No, the whole team. It was a small lie. I heard it settle between us. Will you be home for dinner? I'll try, Linda. What I wanted to say, I know you're afraid. I wanted to say, tell me the truth before he writes it for you. But Karen's warning moved through my mind. Start quietly. So I said, be careful. Her voice softened. Of what? People who make you feel chosen. Silence. Then she whispered, David, please don't make this ugly. I'm not the one doing that. She hung up gently, which somehow hurt worse than if she had slammed the phone down. At 5:40 that evening, I parked across the street from Graybridge Payroll Services. The building was smoked glass and concrete. Rain had turned the asphalt black. Office lights glowed in rows like little yellow warnings. Through the front windows, I saw people leaving with coats over their heads. A security guard locked one side entrance. Then Ryan Cole walked out. I knew him immediately, though we had never met. Tall, trim, charcoal overcoat, brown leather shoes polished to a shine. He moved like a man who believed every room had been expecting him. He held the door open. Linda stepped out behind him. She was laughing at something he had said, not loudly, not guiltily, but with that tired relief people feel around someone who keeps telling them they matter. Ryan placed one hand lightly at the small of her back as they crossed the wet sidewalk. Linda did not move away. My chest tightened. Then Ryan leaned close and said something in her ear. She stopped smiling. The color seemed to leave her face. He handed her a thin manila folder. She looked at it, then looked around the parking lot as if checking whether someone could see. I lowered myself behind the steering wheel. When I looked again, Ryan was helping her into his car, not touching her like a lover, guiding her like a handler. And that frightened me more. I followed them because I loved my wife. That is not a noble sentence, but it is the truthful one. Love does not always look like flowers on a table or hands held in church. Sometimes love looks like an old man sitting in a dark Buick with the heater clicking, telling himself he is not jealous, while his wife rides away with another man. Ryan's car was a silver Lexus, new enough for the taillights to look like red wounds in the rain. He pulled out of the Gray Bridge lot without hurry, stopping fully at the sign signaling before each turn. Men like Ryan followed small rules in public. It made people less likely to believe they broke larger ones in private. I stayed 2 cars behind. They drove past the restaurants near the office park, past the Hampton Inn, past the little wine bar where young executives took clients and older husbands learned to feel unnecessary. My hands tightened on the steering wheel each time Ryan passed a place where a man might take someone else's wife. But he did not stop. 10 minutes later, he turned into a back entrance behind the Gray Bridge building. That confused me enough that I almost missed the turn. The company's main office had 2 lots, one for employees and one for delivery vans near a lower service entrance. By day, that back area was busy with couriers shredding trucks and warehouse staff rolling carts of archived payroll boxes. At night, it looked abandoned. Ryan parked beneath a light that flickered every few seconds. Linda got out first. She was holding the manila folder against her chest. Ryan said something to her and she shook her head. He stepped closer. Not close enough to kiss her, close enough to corner her without touching. I rolled my window down 2 inches. The rain blurred their voices, but one sentence carried. "Linda, this is how people get promoted." She looked down at the folder. "I don't like doing it this way," she said. "You're not doing anything wrong. You're correcting old mistakes." Then he smiled. Even from across the lot, I hated that smile. They entered through the service door. Ryan used a badge. Linda followed. I waited 12 minutes before getting out. The rain had softened to a mist. I pulled up my collar and walked along the side of the building like a man looking for a lost dog. Near the loading dock, a narrow window showed part of a lower office area. The blinds were half closed, but there was a gap near the bottom. I crouched beside a wet hedge and looked in. Linda sat at a desk with 2 monitors in front of her. Ryan stood behind her, one hand on the back of her chair. He was not touching her. That should have comforted me. It did not. He opened the manila folder and removed several pages. Linda read one, then looked up at him. He pointed to a line near the bottom. She shook her head again. Ryan leaned closer and spoke slowly, the way men speak when they want obedience to feel like kindness. I could not hear every word, but I heard enough. Temporary authorization. Cleanup before audit. Your name is already attached to Eastbrook. Linda pressed her fingers to her forehead. Then she signed. 1 page, then another, then a third. I took out my phone and recorded through the window. The image was not perfect, but it was clear enough to show time, place, faces, and the folder. A husband watching that scene would have felt betrayed. An investigator watching that scene saw procedure being bent until it looked like consent. Ryan slid the signed papers back into the folder. Then he nodded toward Linda's computer. She hesitated. He said something. She typed her password. I stopped breathing. A password is not just a password inside a company. It is a fingerprint. It is a confession waiting to be printed. Every click after that would have her name on it. Ryan moved behind her and reached over her shoulder. He took the mouse. Linda let him. On the monitor, rows of vendor records appeared. I saw only fragments through the glass. Eastbrook Payment Batch Manual Override Approval pending. My eyes were not young anymore, but patterns do not require perfect vision. Ryan opened one vendor profile, then another. He copied a number from the folder and entered it into a field. Linda said something sharp. He answered with a calm hand in the air. Then he placed a sheet in front of her and tapped the signature line. She did not sign this time. For a moment, I thought she was finally waking up. Then Ryan reached into his coat and removed his phone. He showed her something on the screen. Linda's face changed. It was not guilt now, it was panic. She signed. I had seen that look before on witnesses who thought they were already trapped. Ryan had something over her. Maybe not an affair, maybe not even a crime, but something that made my wife believe refusal was more dangerous than obedience. My knees ached from crouching. Rain slid down the back of my neck. I wanted to burst through the service door, grab Ryan by his expensive coat, and ask what he had done to her. But anger is loud, and evidence is quiet, so I stayed outside. At 8:36 p.m., Ryan left Linda alone at the desk and walked into a hallway. I moved quickly along the building until I could see the side lot. His Lexus was still there. I photographed the plate, the service entrance, the timestamp on the parking sign. When I returned to the window, Linda was crying, not sobbing, just sitting there with tears running silently down her face while the monitors glowed blue in front of her. That sight nearly broke me, because whatever line she had not crossed it with joy. Ryan came back with 2 paper cups of coffee. He placed one beside her and touched her shoulder. Linda flinched so slightly most people would have missed it. I did not. They worked another 40 minutes. When they finally came out, Ryan carried the folder. Linda carried nothing. Her face looked empty. In the parking lot, he said, "You did the right thing." She whispered, "David can never know." Ryan smiled. "He won't." I followed Linda home, not Ryan. I needed to know she arrived safely. She drove her own car this time, slowly, both hands on the wheel, like someone coming back from a funeral. At home, I waited in the dark kitchen again. She came in and stopped when she saw me. "Another late night?" I asked. Her eyes filled instantly. "Please," she said, "not tonight." I nodded. She went upstairs without another word. After the bedroom door closed, I sat at the table and opened my laptop. I replayed the video from the window 5 times. Then I searched every name I had seen through the glass. Eastbrook vendor profile. Payment batch approval pending. By 1:15 a.m., I found the first strange transfer. Small amount, unremarkable. The kind of money a busy department would overlook. By 1:47, I found a second. By 2:22, a third. All routed through slightly different vendor names, all tied to Eastbrook, all approved under Linda Miller's login. I leaned back and felt the kitchen tilt around me. I had followed my wife that night expecting to discover another man. Instead, I had found a paper trail. And for the first time, I understood I might not be watching the end of my marriage. I might be watching the beginning of a crime. The first rule of fraud is that money tells the truth later than people do. People smile, people explain, people swear on their mother's grave, but money leaves tiny bruises wherever it has been handled badly. You just have to know where to look. That night, I did not sleep. I sat at the kitchen table while the house settled around me, the old pipes clicking in the walls, the refrigerator switching on and off like a tired animal breathing. Upstairs, Linda was quiet. I did not know if she was asleep, praying, or lying awake with Ryan Cole's voice still inside her head. On my laptop screen were 3 payments tied to Eastbrook. None of them looked dramatic. That was the point. $4,820, $6,175, $3,940. Small enough to disappear inside a corporate budget, large enough to matter if they happened again and again. The vendor names were almost identical to approved contractors. One letter changed, one word rearranged. A legitimate vendor called Norland Data Processing became Norland Data Processors. A cleaning service called Metro Archive Support became Metro Archive Support, LLC. That extra S was worth almost $4,000. I copied every line into my notebook. At 3:08 a.m., I noticed the detail that made my stomach go cold. Each change had been made after normal office hours. Each one carried Linda's user ID, and each one was followed less than 4 minutes later by an administrative note from Ryan Cole. Reviewed with LM. Correction approved. Audit cleanup in progress. He was not hiding behind her. He was building a wall around her. By morning, the rain had stopped. Gray light came through the kitchen blinds. Linda came downstairs in her robe and stopped when she saw me still sitting there. "You didn't come to bed," she said. "No." Her eyes moved to the laptop. I closed it. For a second, shame flickered across her face. Then something harder came after it, a kind of exhausted defensiveness. "David, I can't do this right now." "Do what?" "This." She waved one hand between us. "The interrogation." "I haven't asked you anything." "That's almost worse." She poured coffee with shaking hands. The cup clicked against the counter. I wanted to reach for her. I wanted to say her name in the old way, the way I said it when we were young and broke and standing in grocery aisles, deciding what we could afford. Instead, I watched her. "What does Ryan have on you?" I asked. The color drained from her face. "Nothing." "Linda," I said, "nothing." She turned away, but not before I saw tears gather in her eyes. There are moments in marriage when love and anger stand so close together you cannot tell which one is speaking. "You're lying to me," I said quietly. She gripped the edge of the sink. "I am trying to survive my job." "That man is not your job." She spun around. "You don't understand." The words were Ryan's. I heard him in them. I stood up slowly. "Then help me understand." For a moment I thought she might. Her mouth trembled. Her shoulders dropped. The woman I knew almost stepped forward. Then her phone buzzed upstairs. The sound changed her face. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "I have to get ready. Linda, if he's threatening you, he's not threatening me." But she said it too quickly. She went upstairs, leaving her coffee untouched. I waited until her car pulled out of the driveway. Then I called Karen Whitlow again. This time, she answered on the first ring. "I was hoping you wouldn't call back," she said. "That bad? That familiar?" I told her what I had found. The vendor clones, the after-hours changes, Ryan's administrative notes. Karen was quiet for a long moment. "David," she said, "that is not theft anymore. That is preparation." "For what?" "To make Linda look like the center of it." I looked at the closed laptop. "Explain." "Ryan's notes are not for today. They're for the investigation later. When the money is gone, compliance pulls the activity log. They see Linda's login making vendor changes after hours. Then they see Ryan documenting that he reviewed cleanup procedures with her. He becomes the helpful manager who tried to supervise a struggling employee. And Linda becomes the employee who abused the access. Yes, the room seemed to darken around me. I had spent the night afraid my wife had betrayed our marriage. Now I was beginning to understand that betrayal had been the bait Ryan used to hide something uglier. "What does he need from her?" I asked. "Credibility," Karen said. "Someone with long-term access, someone trusted, someone overlooked." Linda. Reliable Linda, who brought banana bread to the office after snowstorms. Linda, who remembered everyone's payroll issue, everyone's child's graduation, everyone's sick parent. Linda, who was tired of being invisible. Ryan had not chosen her because she was foolish. He had chosen her because she was decent. That made me hate him in a cleaner way. Karen lowered her voice. "If you confront him, he'll delete what he can and blame what's left on her." "I know. If you confront her, she may warn him." That hurt because it was true. She's my wife, I said. I know. That's why this is dangerous. After we hung up, I drove to the public library instead of staying home. I needed a place where my thoughts could not echo off the walls of my own house. At a back computer terminal, I searched Ryan's previous employers again. I widened the dates. I searched vendor disputes, settlement notices, small claims, archived board minutes. It took hours, but fraud has a rhythm. Once you hear it, you can follow the beat. Brighton Medical had blamed an accounts coordinator named Marcy Lane. Franklin Benefits had terminated a payroll specialist named Aaron Fields. Both cases involved cloned vendors. Both involved late-night system access. Both had a project liaison helping with cleanup before an audit. Ryan's name appeared only at the edges, never in the center. That was his talent. He made other people look guilty, while he stood close enough to be helpful. By late afternoon, I found Marcy Lane living 2 counties away. She answered after 4 rings, her voice guarded. "I'm not interested in talking about Brighton," she said. "I'm not calling from Brighton. My name is David Miller. I think the man who ruined your life is trying to do the same thing to my wife." Silence. Then I heard her breathe in sharply. "Ryan Cole," she whispered. I closed my eyes. "Yes." Her voice broke. "Tell your wife not to sign anything else." I looked out the library window at the parking lot where bare trees moved in the wind. I think she already has. Marcy did not speak for several seconds. Then she said, "Then don't try to save her by making noise." That's what I did. I screamed. I accused him. I made myself look unstable. What should I do? "Let him think he's winning," she said. "Men like Ryan get careless when they feel admired." That evening, Linda came home just after 8. She looked smaller than she had that morning. She set her purse down, then kept one hand on it as if she might need to run. "Ryan wants me to go in tomorrow," she said. "Saturday." I nodded. "For Eastbrook." She stared at me. Yes. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to pull her into my arms and say, "You are standing in a trap." But her phone was in her purse, and Ryan's hooks were already under her skin. So I only said, "Then I'll make breakfast early." Her face crumpled for 1 second. "Why are you being kind to me?" she whispered. "Because I remember who you were before you got scared." She covered her mouth and walked upstairs. I stood alone in the hall, feeling my heart break in a way anger could not protect. That night, I prepared a second folder, not for Linda, not for Ryan, for whoever would need proof when the trap finally closed. And by then, I understood the cruel shape of it. Ryan was not stealing my wife from me. He was turning her into the signature at the bottom of his crime. Saturday morning, I made pancakes. That sounds foolish now. A man believes his wife is walking into a criminal trap, and he stands in a kitchen measuring flour. But marriage is often made of ordinary gestures, performed while the world is falling apart. Linda came downstairs in dark slacks and a cream sweater. Shadows sat beneath her eyes. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I know." For a few minutes we ate in silence. "Ryan says today should be the last Saturday," she said. "Should be. He says after this, the Eastbrook file will be clean." I poured more coffee. Clean is an interesting word. She looked at me sharply. I looked back as if I had meant nothing by it. Her face softened, then broke in a small way. "David, I'm not trying to hurt you." "No," I said. "I don't think you are." That was the closest I could come to telling the truth. "I just wanted someone at work to finally see me," she whispered. "I wanted to say, I have seen you every day for 31 years. I have seen you fall asleep with payroll reports on your chest. But wounded pride does not always hear love, so I only said, be careful what people ask you to become in exchange for being seen." Her phone buzzed. The moment closed. At 9:15, Ryan picked her up. He did not come to the door. He waited at the curb in the Lexus engine running. Linda looked back before stepping outside. I lifted 2 fingers in a quiet wave. Ryan saw me through the windshield and smiled. I smiled back. Then I waited 4 minutes and followed them. Graybridge was mostly empty on Saturdays. I parked near a closed dental office and watched through binoculars I used for birding. Ryan and Linda entered through the front this time, not the service door. That told me he wanted something ordinary on camera, a manager and an employee arriving for approved overtime. I wrote it down. 9:38 a.m., front entrance, both visible. They stayed inside for nearly 5 hours. At 3:05, Linda texted me. Ryan says there's a small audit kickoff reception at 5. Spouses welcome. You can come if you want. There are invitations that sound like apologies and apologies that sound like tests. I replied, I'll be there. By 5, I wore a navy blazer Linda had bought me years earlier. My left knee ached from sitting in the car too long, and I used that ache when I walked in. I let myself look harmless. The reception was in Graybridge's second-floor conference space, folding tables, trays of sandwiches, supermarket flowers, plastic cups, and a banner that read, Eastbrook Audit Transition Team. Linda stood near the coffee urn, looking uncomfortable. Ryan stood beside her, charming 3 executives at once. When he saw me, his face brightened in a way that did not reach his eyes. David Miller, he said, extending a hand. Finally, Linda talks about you all the time. His grip was firm and dry. Good things, I hope. Mostly. He laughed, and the executives laughed with him, because men like Ryan teach rooms when to laugh. She says you're enjoying retirement. I keep busy. Golf, woodworking, grandkids. No grandkids. Ah. He gave me the soft pity of a man who knows where to place a knife. Well, hobbies are important. Linda's mouth tightened. Ryan, what I mean, he put a friendly hand on my shoulder. Linda is lucky. Some husbands your age get insecure when their wives start moving up. But you seem like the kind of man who understands when it's time to step back and let her grow. The sentence sounded kind from a distance. Up close, it stank. I looked at his hand until he removed it. Then I smiled. At my age, you learn to listen more. That's admirable, Ryan said. The world changes fast. Not everyone keeps up. One executive chuckled. Linda stared at the floor. I took a sandwich from the tray and said, Turkey. Ryan blinked. Excuse me, these sandwiches, turkey or chicken? For the first time, irritation flashed across his face. He had thrown a dart, and I had asked about lunch. Turkey, I think. Good, I said. Linda hates chicken salad. Linda looked up at me then, and for 1 second there she was, my wife. The woman who knew I was not stupid. The woman who knew I had chosen not to fight in a room where Ryan wanted me to look small. I spent the next hour being exactly what Ryan expected. Polite, slow, mildly confused by office jargon. I asked where the restroom was, though I had memorized the floor map near the elevator. I complimented the coffee. I asked the CFO whether Eastbrook made software or furniture. People relax around harmless men. That was how I heard things. Near the hallway, 2 employees whispered that Ryan had been cleaning up approvals under Linda's name because she knew the old system. A woman from audit said, I don't like how much of this sits on one user ID. A man answered, Ryan says Linda insisted, wanted ownership before promotion. There it was, a motive he could hand them later. At 6:18, Ryan stepped into the hallway to take a call. I followed at a distance and stopped beside a framed safety poster. My recorder was inside my blazer pocket, already running. Ryan's voice drifted from the corner near the stairwell. No, she signed the override sheet. Yes, Saturday access too. If it goes bad, it goes through LM first. A pause. Then he laughed softly. Her husband. Please. He asked me what Eastbrook sells. I looked down at my old shoes and smiled. Contempt is useful. It makes arrogant men generous with their secrets. That night I checked the recorder. Ryan's voice was clear enough. Then I opened my email. One new message waited from an address I did not recognize. No subject. The body contained only 2 lines. The account Ryan is using isn't just stealing money. He's preparing a federal-level fraud case, and your wife's name is on every file. I read it 3 times. Then I printed it, placed it in the second folder, and locked the garage cabinet. Ryan Cole thought I was a man who had fallen behind the world. He did not know I had spent half my life waiting for men like him to underestimate me. I did not show Linda the email. That was the hardest thing I had done in 31 years of marriage. Not because I enjoyed keeping secrets from her. Secrets had already poisoned too much of our house. But because the truth said too early can become a warning bell for the wrong person. And Ryan Cole was still listening. I did not know whether he had access to Linda's phone. I did not know what he had shown her in that office to make her sign those papers. I did not know if she would protect herself or protect him or panic and do both badly. So I folded the anonymous email and placed it in the locked cabinet beside the recorder, the screenshots, the old case notes, and the growing timeline of my wife's fear. Then I went upstairs. Linda was sitting on the edge of our bed, still wearing her work clothes. Her shoes were lined up neatly beside the dresser, but everything else about her looked undone. She held her phone in both hands, staring at a blank screen. "You ate?" I asked. She shook her head. "I can warm up soup. I'm not hungry." I stood in the doorway. The bedroom lamp cast a soft yellow light across her face. I could see the woman I married and the stranger she was becoming, both sitting in the same tired body. "Linda," I said, "come downstairs." She looked at me as if I had asked her to walk through fire. "Why?" "Because you need to eat." Her eyes filled. "Why are you still taking care of me?" I did not answer right away. "Because you are my wife. Because I am angry. Because I am terrified. Because I do not know how to stop loving someone just because they wounded me." None of those sentences would fit safely in the room, so I said, "Because soup is easy." She laughed once, but it broke before it became a real laugh. We sat at the kitchen table 10 minutes later with 2 bowls between us. She stirred hers without taking a bite. "Ryan says the audit team may ask me questions next week," she said. I kept my spoon still. "What kind of questions?" "Routine ones." "Is that what he called them?" Her shoulders stiffened. "David." I leaned back. "I'm just asking." "No, you're not. You're doing that thing." "What thing?" "The quiet thing, where you already know more than you're saying." There it was. After 3 decades, my silence had a shape she recognized. I looked at her hands. No rings except the wedding band. She still wore it. That mattered more than I wanted it to. "What are you afraid of?" I asked. She pushed the bowl away. "I don't know anymore." That was the closest she had come to the truth. She went to bed before me. I stayed downstairs and took out a sheet of paper from the desk drawer. I had not written Linda a letter in years. We used to leave notes everywhere when we were young, on lunch bags, on mirrors, on napkins folded into coat pockets. Then life got efficient. Texts replaced handwriting. Bills replaced poems. Love became something assumed because it had survived so long. But that night I wrote, "Linda, I am hurt in ways I do not know how to say without sounding cruel. I am not hurt because you worked late. I am not hurt because another man praised you. I am hurt because somewhere along the way, you stopped believing I was someone you could bring your fear to." I paused there. The house was quiet. In the living room, the old clock ticked with the stubborn patience of something built before everything became disposable. I kept writing. You remember when we lost the baby, and you told me grief felt like living inside a room with no doors? I told you I would sit in that room with you until we found one. Do you remember when my consulting contract ended and we had $96 left after the mortgage? You cut coupons, and I pretended not to see you crying in the laundry room. Do you remember the day we paid off this house? You put both hands on the front door and said, "No more hiding bills, no more pretending. We tell each other everything from now on." That was the promise I thought we still lived inside. My hand shook near the end. I do not know what Ryan Cole has made you believe. I do not know what line you crossed or why you crossed it, but I know this. If you are in trouble, I would rather face the truth with you than be protected by a lie from you. I signed it only with my first name, David. Then I folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. I did not give it to her. Instead, I put it in the same drawer where we kept batteries, stamps, and old birthday candles. Ordinary things. Things people reach for when the lights go out. The next morning, I called Thomas Braden. Tom had been corporate counsel for Harrington before he retired to North Carolina and developed the irritating habit of answering every call like he expected bad news. "David," he said, "if this is about golf, I still hate golf." "It's not golf." "Then I hate it already." I told him enough. Not everything, never everything on a first call. Names, dates. Eastbrook, Graybridge, Ryan Cole, Linda's login, vendor clones, administrative notes, federal exposure. Tom went silent in a way only lawyers and priests can. Then he asked, "Did you say Graybridge?" "Yes, Graybridge Payroll Services." "Yes." "David, do you recognize that company?" "I know my wife works there." "No," he said, "before the rebrand, before the acquisition." I opened the drawer and took out my notebook. What was it called? Midwest Ledger Group. The name moved through me like a cold draft. 20 years earlier, Midwest Ledger had hired Harrington after a payroll diversion scandal. I had spent 9 months rebuilding their fraud controls, dual authorization, restricted vendor edits, after-hours access alerts, escalation triggers. Tom continued, "You wrote their anti-fraud workflow. Half those controls were yours." I sat down slowly. "If Ryan is getting around that system," Tom said, "he isn't improvising. He knows the controls. Or someone taught him where the weak spots are." I looked toward the stairs, toward the room where Linda was still sleeping. Tom's voice lowered. "David, listen carefully. If your wife's name is on every file, this is not just about stolen payments. He is preparing a story, and if you want to break that story, you need to let him finish telling it." I closed my eyes. Let him finish. It was the same thing Marcy Lane had said in a different way. Let him think he is winning. After we hung up, I opened the kitchen drawer and looked at the letter I had written Linda. I wanted to hand it to her more than I wanted revenge, more than I wanted proof, more than I wanted to be right. But love is not always rescue at the first scream. Sometimes love is waiting in the dark long enough to see where the knife is coming from. That evening, Linda left for another meeting with Ryan. I watched her car disappear down the street, then opened my notebook and wrote one sentence beneath Ryan's name. He chose the wrong woman to use. Then, after a moment, I added another. And the wrong husband to underestimate. Linda did not come home until 10:22 that night. I heard her car before I saw the headlights sweep across the living room wall. The sound used to comfort me. For years, when Linda worked late, I would listen for that old sedan turning into the driveway and feel the house become whole again. That night, the sound felt like a warning. She came through the front door slowly, as if every step had to be negotiated with her body. Her face looked pale beneath the hallway light.
Ryan says tomorrow is the audit prep meeting, she said. No hello, no coat off, no kiss on the cheek, just Ryan. What time? 8. At Graybridge. She nodded. I watched her hand close around the strap of her purse. Are you presenting? No. Her voice cracked slightly. Ryan is. I'm just supposed to be there in case they have questions about the Eastbrook cleanup. The phrase sounded rehearsed. Eastbrook cleanup. Ryan had taught her to say it like a harmless chore. I stepped closer. Linda, listen to me carefully. In that meeting, do not volunteer anything. Do not explain anything unless you are asked directly. Her eyes narrowed with fear. Why? Because people hear panic before they hear facts. She swallowed. What do you know? Enough to save you, enough to hate you a little, enough to still choose you. More than I wanted to, I said. For one long second, she looked like she might fall apart. Then her phone buzzed. The wall went back up. I need to sleep, she whispered. She went upstairs. I waited until the bedroom door closed. Then I walked to the garage and opened the gray filing cabinet for what I hoped would be the last time. The folders had grown thick. Camera stills from the service entrance, my video through the rain-streaked window, audio from the reception, Ryan's voice clear enough when he said, "If it goes bad, it goes through LM first." Screenshots of duplicate vendor records, payment routing changes, access logs. Karen had managed to confirm without crossing a line she could not uncross. A sworn statement from Marcy Lane, short but devastating, and Tom Braden's legal memo explaining why Ryan's pattern could trigger federal wire fraud exposure if the payments crossed state banking systems. I laid everything across the workbench. Evidence looks different when it is gathered by a husband. Every document felt like proof of a crime and proof of a wound. Each page said Ryan was guilty. Each page also said Linda had hidden from me when she should have come home with the truth. At 1:40 a.m. I began writing the email. Not angry. Anger makes people look unstable on paper. I wrote it the way I had written case summaries 20 years earlier. Plain, dated, numbered, impossible to misunderstand. To Graybridge Board Compliance Committee CC, General Counsel, Internal Audit Director CF, O, External Audit Lead BCC, Thomas Braden. Then I added one more address Karen had given me, a regional financial crimes contact. My finger hovered over the keyboard before I typed it in. Once that address went in, Ryan's game would no longer belong only to Graybridge. The subject line took me the longest. Finally, at 5:58 a.m., I wrote, "Evidence of internal fraud involving Eastbrook vendor diversion." Prepared by David Miller, former senior fraud investigator. I attached the files in order. Exhibit A, timeline. Exhibit B, Ryan Cole employment pattern. Exhibit C, video, after-hours service entrance. Exhibit D, audio audit, reception hallway. Exhibit E, vendor clone routing. Exhibit F, prior victim statement. Exhibit G, Midwest Ledger fraud control memo. At 6:12 a.m., I pressed send. The house did not shake. No thunder rolled. No sirens appeared outside. The email simply vanished into the quiet morning. That is how consequences often begin. At 7:31, Linda came downstairs, dressed for work. She wore the pearl earrings again, though her hands shook as she fastened one of them. "You're up early," she said. "I'm going with you." She turned. "What, to the meeting?" "No, David, please don't. I won't speak unless I need to. You'll make it worse." I picked up my coat from the chair. "No," I said. "I think worse already has a seat reserved." She stared at me, and for the first time in weeks, she did not look away.
What did you do?" "What I should have done the moment I saw fear on your face." Her lips parted. Then her phone rang. "Ryan." She looked at the screen, then at me. "Answer it," I said. She put it on speaker with trembling fingers. Linda Ryan's voice said, smooth as polished glass, "Slight change." The audit meeting got moved to the large conference room. Legal may sit in just routine. "Don't worry. Let me do the talking." I closed my eyes. There it was, the story about to be told. Linda whispered, "Okay." And Linda, "Yes." "If anyone asks, you handled the vendor corrections directly. Remember, ownership looks good for promotion." Her face went white. I leaned toward the phone. "Good morning, Ryan." Silence. Then he laughed softly. "David, didn't expect you to be part of audit prep. I'm trying to keep up with the modern world." Another pause. "Of course," he said. "See you both soon." The call ended. Linda looked as if she could barely breathe. "He told me it was procedure," she whispered. "I know. He said if I didn't help, they'd blame me for delays." "I know." She covered her mouth. "David, what have I done?" I wanted that question weeks earlier. But regret, even late, is still a door. "You're going to sit in that room," I said. "You're going to tell the truth when asked. Nothing more. Nothing less." Graybridge's lobby was crowded when we arrived. People spoke in low voices. The receptionist would not meet Linda's eyes. At 8:03, the large conference room door opened. Ryan stood near the front table, in a charcoal suit, looking calm, handsome, and ready. Beside him were two attorneys, the CFO, the audit director, and three people I did not recognize. One of them carried a federal badge clipped to her belt. Ryan smiled when we entered. "Linda," he said gently, as if he were already forgiving her. Then he looked at me. "David, glad you could support your wife." I helped Linda into a chair. The general counsel turned on the projector. For a moment the screen glowed blue. Then the first slide appeared. "Evidence of internal fraud involving Eastbrook vendor diversion." Prepared by David Miller, former senior fraud investigator. Ryan's smile did not disappear all at once. It died carefully, 1 inch at a time. For 1 full second, nobody moved. The conference room had the kind of silence that makes every small sound feel guilty. The air vent humming above us, a pen rolling slightly on the table, Linda's breath catching beside me. Ryan Cole stared at the screen, prepared by David Miller, former senior fraud investigator. He blinked once, then twice, like a man trying to wake up inside his own nightmare. The general counsel, a woman named Allison Green, folded her hands. "Mr. Cole, we're going to ask that no one leave this room until we've reviewed the preliminary findings." Ryan recovered faster than most men would have. I had to give him that. His shoulders relaxed, his face softened. He turned toward Linda with an expression so wounded it almost looked holy. "Linda," he said, "I told you this would happen if you handled those corrections without proper supervision." Linda flinched. There he was, not angry, not cornered, still performing. "You said you wanted ownership," Ryan continued. "I tried to help you, but I can't take responsibility for decisions you made on your own." My wife lowered her head. Her hands trembled in her lap. The federal investigator near the projector, a compact woman with steel-gray hair, looked at Ryan. "Mr. Cole," she said, "did Linda Miller know what she was signing?" Ryan leaned back carefully. "Linda wanted the promotion. I was only trying to help her." Every face in that room turned toward me. That was the moment from the beginning, the moment Ryan thought would bury her. I reached into my coat pocket and placed a sealed envelope on the table. "Thank you," I said. Ryan looked at the envelope. "For what?" "For telling the last lie I needed." Allison opened the envelope first. Inside was a transcript of the hallway recording from the reception,
then a flash drive, then printed screenshots from the lower office window video. The investigator played the audio. Ryan's own voice filled the room. If it goes bad, it goes through LM first. No one spoke. Linda made a small sound beside me, not quite a sob, not quite a gasp. Ryan's jaw tightened. That's taken out of context. The investigator clicked to the next file. The screen showed Ryan standing behind Linda's chair after hours. Linda was seated at her computer, frozen and pale. Ryan leaned over her shoulder, one hand on the mouse, the other pointing at a vendor field. Then the video paused. Her login, the investigator said. Your hand. Ryan's face flushed. That video was taken illegally. Allison looked at him. We'll let counsel discuss admissibility. Right now, we're discussing internal risk. The next slides came one after another. Duplicate vendors, routing numbers, after-hours access, Ryan's administrative notes. The same pattern at Brighton Medical, the same pattern at Franklin Benefits. Marcy Lane's statement appeared last. Ryan stopped looking handsome by the end of it. Not ugly exactly, just unfinished. Like the mask had been removed and there was less beneath it than everyone expected. He stood suddenly. This is absurd. You're taking the word of a retired husband who followed his wife around because he was jealous. There it was, the old husband, the insecure man, the fool who could not keep up. I nodded slowly. You're right about one thing, I said. I followed my wife because I was afraid I was losing her. Linda closed her eyes. But I kept following. I continued because I realized you were trying to make sure she lost everything else. Ryan pointed at me. You set me up. No, I said. I let you continue. There's a difference. The federal investigator stepped forward. Mr. Cole, we'll need your company devices. Ryan laughed, once sharp and empty. You can't be serious. Allison looked toward the door. 2 security officers entered. That was when Ryan finally understood he was not in a meeting anymore. He was in the first room of the rest of his life. He looked at Linda then, and for the first time there was no charm left in him. You stupid woman, he said. I stood so quickly my chair scraped the floor. The investigator lifted one hand slightly, not to stop me, but to remind me where I was. Linda looked up at Ryan. Tears ran down her face, but her voice came out steady. No, she said. I was lonely. I was foolish. I was ashamed, but I was not stupid. I trusted the wrong man. Then she turned to me, and I hurt the right one. Ryan had no answer for that. By noon, he was gone from the building. By evening, Graybridge had placed him under termination review and preserved every device, every access record, every vendor file tied to his name. The federal side moved more slowly, as it always does, but slowly does not mean softly. Linda was not arrested. She was not charged, but she was not untouched either. Truth is not the same as innocence. She had signed documents she did not understand. She had hidden messages from me. She had let another man make her feel important enough to ignore the voice inside her that knew something was wrong. Graybridge offered her leave. She chose resignation. 2 nights later, we sat at the same kitchen table where all of it had begun. No rain this time, no midnight phone buzzing. Just the yellow kitchen light, 2 untouched cups of tea, and 31 years sitting between us like a third person. Linda held the letter I had never sent her. I had given it to her that morning. She read it twice. Then she folded it carefully and pressed it against her chest. "Do you still trust me?" she asked. I looked at her wedding ring, then at mine. "Not like before," I said. She nodded as if she deserved worse. "But I'm still here," I added. "And if you want to rebuild this, we start with the truth. No more protecting me with lies. No more letting strangers into the places we stopped talking about."
She cried then. Not loudly. Linda never cried loudly. She reached across the table, and after a long moment I took her hand. It did not fix everything. Real life rarely gives you clean endings. Ryan lost his job. Linda lost the career she had tried so hard to save. I lost the easy trust I once believed could not be shaken. But we did not lose the house. We did not lose the truth. And somehow, in the wreckage, we found the first honest conversation we had had in years. People think betrayal always begins with desire. Sometimes it begins with loneliness. Sometimes it begins when a person feels unseen for so long that the first voice offering praise sounds like rescue. And sometimes the strongest revenge is not shouting, not violence, not humiliation. Sometimes it is staying calm long enough to let the liar finish his story, and then placing the truth on the table. If this story made you think of someone who stayed silent while carrying more pain than anyone knew, share it with them. And if you believe family truth and quiet strength still matter, stay with us for the next story. The end.